Lumix has come out swanging in 2025 with 3 brand new S-line cameras. You got the S1R Mark II, the S1 Mark II, and the S1IIE, which I have custom blacked out. I just wanted to get a little creative and make it look more like the S5IIX, okay? Get off my back. It's not just the names that are wildly similar. There are features that are cross-compatible and super close between all 3, but they're slightly different enough where you do need to be wise when choosing which one might be best for you, your budget, and your work. That's what I'm gonna help you with today, so grab some Lumix lemonade and let's get locked in. This video is sponsored by Editor's Keys. For design and build quality, it's not a difficult conversation because all 3 of these bodies are identical to one another. They are the exact same chassis. Yes, it's confusing if you own multiple different ones, but if you're shooting with these in a work environment, it's nice that everything is immediately familiar and consistent. But within each of these L-mount cameras are 3 completely different sensors. The R2 has this 44 megapixel glorious 8K sensor, theorized to be the same as the Ronin 4D 8K. The S1II and the S1IIE both have 24 megapixel 6K sensors, but they're different sensors. Both are pretty dang beautiful though, so nothing to worry about there. All 3 cameras have 1 SD card slot and 1 CF Express Type B. And thank you to the comments on a recent video that told me you actually can dual record to both of these slots at the same time. I thought you couldn't for some reason, but you can. Or you can choose to have photos go to one card and videos to another card, which is also pretty slick. All 3 cameras have full-size HDMI ports, USB-C power delivery, and webcam functionality, all the way up to HD 60 frames per second. Thank you, Panasonic, that we finally have this feature. It's coming to the S1R2 in firmware, but all 3 of them get it. And all 3 cameras have a feature where you can copy and move files from one card to another, or from one card to an external SSD if you want to dump your footage on the go. And all 3 have intelligent hot shoe function where you can use that Lumix external recorder and get 32-bit float audio into all 3 of these cameras. And all 3 have the exact same viewfinder, 5.76 million dots, OLED 120 frames per second, and a beautiful screen that not only flips out for those vloggy boys, but it also tilts out and it pops out from the body. It's the best screen design in a mirrorless camera, and I have to keep saying it because I kept complaining about it for a long time. Panasonic just gave it to us. And I love that they didn't cripple the more affordable E version. It's all the exact same body features. Now for photography performance. The S1R2 is 44 megapixels. It can do 10 frames per second mechanical burst or 44 frames per second electronic. The S1II also does 10 frames per second mechanical and 70 frames per second electronic. The E also does 10 frames per second mechanical, but only 30 frames per second electronic. But which one would you actually choose for photography? First of all, let's say that you have no budget limitations. I would immediately gravitate toward the R2. I don't know what exactly it is, but this camera and this 44 megapixel sensor just has something a little bit magical to it. I have the S9 as well, bought with my own money that I was using as my dad cam. But now that I own the R2, I rarely use that because the photos from the R2 just look so insanely beautiful. And don't get me wrong, the S1II and Jimmy both shoot really nice looking photos at 24 megapixels as well. But I don't know, there's just something a little bit special about the R. Maybe I'm just a megapixel freaking sucker. I don't know. Over here sucking megapics. Whatever, dude. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate with me that I spend a ton of time at my desk editing, and one thing that I love to have at my desk is a really cool keyboard. This is the keyboard I've been using for a while now from Editor's Keys, today's sponsor and friends of the channel. I've been using this even when they're not sponsoring my videos. It has better battery life than that cheap produce company that we tend to use. All the shortcuts from your favorite program are just put right on the keyboard itself, so it gives it a cool design. One of my favorite features is it can connect up to 3 Bluetooth devices at once. Let me see if I can just show you. You see the little Bluetooth logos at the top? They have keyboards for everything you can imagine, and they look so cool. They also have microphones. That's why I'm weirdly holding this USB microphone. This is the SL600 USB mic. It's affordable. You can control the gain and plug headphones directly into it, and I won't even do any post-processing. I'll just make sure the volume's good so you can hear what it actually sounds like for an affordable USB mic. Thank you to Editor's Keys for sponsoring today's video, and thank you to you guys for listening and sticking around. I appreciate it. But now let's flip over to video mode with our handy dandy hybrid switch. Here's what they have in common in terms of video tools. They all have frame markers. You get waveform, vector scope, internal false color, and in-camera anamorphic D-squeeze monitoring. Also in a firmware update, all 3 of these cameras are going to get ARRI Log C3 if you want to shoot in the ARRI color space. That is a paid firmware update, but all 3 cameras are getting it. Now let's get into the differences, and it's a little bit trickier, so pay attention. The R2 is the only one that shoots at 8.1K up to 30 frames per second. And it's confirmed that 8K open gate is coming to this camera. It also does 6.4K open gate up to 30 frames per second, which is more resolution than the open gates in the other cameras. It also does 6K 60p full sensor, and DCI 4K 60, and DCI 4K 120. All of that is full frame, but the 120p has a slight punch-in of a crop. Now the 1.2, which is just such a bad name, does 6K up to 30 frames per second open gate, and it is the only camera of the 3, and probably the only mirrorless camera ever so far that shoots slow motion open gate. So you can do 5.1K, 60 frames per second, open gate. Anamorphic shooters and anyone who wants that full aspect ratio slow motion, rejoice. But it also does 6K 60p full frame, just like the R2, and DCI 4K 60 and DCI 4K 120, but the 120 has a little bit of a crop as well. The R2 and the 1.2 are both getting a firmware update that will allow you to do RAW over HDMI, so you can do ProRes RAW and Blackmagic RAW, which is insane, and it's just coming to those 2 cameras, not the E. But here's what Jimmy can do. You get 6K open gate up to 30 frames per second, which is so cool that they've taken the S5IIX sensor and just squeezed even more lemonade out of it. For slow motion, you get 6K 60p and 4K 60p. However, it does have a cinescope crop, so it looks like this instead of the full sensor. It's still better than the S5IIX, which cropped in a lot with the slow motion 4K 60. But this guy, you still have to deal with a crop, but it's different. If you edit on a 16:9 timeline and you zoom in on that cinescope, you're gonna end up with a 1.34 crop. And if you edit on a 2:1 timeline like me, you're gonna zoom in and end up with a 1.19 crop. So it's really not that bad, and you'll get room on the left and right to adjust or keyframe. I just wish it could do full frame, but they said it's a sensor limitation. It simply can't be done. All right, now we are on the S1R Mark II, 4K, 422, 24 frames per second. This is with DR expansion turned off. Now expansion is turned on, but it's all the other same settings. So we're at ISO 400, which is native with expansion. We are on the S1II, native ISO with boost turned off. So this is just max dynamic range you can get without boost. So now boost is turned on. It should be about the same exposure. I'm just stopping down to compensate because I have a hard 6-stop ND on the front, so the color is good. But we're at ISO 1000 because that's your base in boost mode. All right, now we are on the Jimmy Cinema 4K 422 10-bit 24 frames per second, 6000 Kelvin, identical settings. This camera does not have a dynamic range boost mode, so this is what we're getting right now, boys. So for the R2, it has a feature called dynamic range expansion. When you're just shooting in normal dynamic range on this camera, like you just turn it on Vlog, your base ISOs are 200 and 1000, which I actually like because they're lower, I can use less ND. And then when I turn on expansion mode, they become base ISOs of 400 and 2000. When expansion's turned on, you get better dynamic range, obviously, but worse rolling shutter, you lose your high frame rates, and your dog will take a crap on your porch. People freaked out about this camera's rolling shutter. There was stupid drama about it. I took it out in a real world setting and filmed a professional basketball player. Guess what? Looked fine. It sounds confusing on paper, but the expansion mode on this camera is a superpower because you get 4 base ISOs, which means you can almost shoot native most of the time. Even when you're shooting high ISOs on this camera, it's really clean. It's the cleanest of the 3. So this thing's a beast. Now the S1II. When you're shooting in standard dynamic range, you get base ISOs of 640 and 5000. Now this camera also has another dynamic range setting, but it's not expansion, it's dynamic range boost. When DR boost is turned on, your base ISO becomes 1000. It takes a signal of your shadows and highlights and makes a super signal, and you get like 15 stops of DR. It looks insanely good, but you can only shoot up to 25 frames per second, and your rolling shutter will be worse. When that's turned off and you get those 640 and 5000 ISOs, you get better readout speeds, which means better rolling shutter performance. It's gonna be faster and better than the S1R2 if you're actually concerned with that. And you'll get all those high frame rates back, and your dog will actually clean up its own poop. How about the Jimmy? I love you, Jimmy. me? If you'd show your sensor, I'd kiss it right now, boy. I freaking love this camera because it's a little bit more simple. It's just Vlog, base ISO of 640 and 4000. That's all you get. None of these cameras are FX3 level. Would it be cool if they released something like that? Yes, but all three are pretty solid, but the S1R2 is the best in low light. At the end of the day, I still think the Lumix mirrorless cameras, especially these three, just have a sauce to them that most mirrorless cameras don't. I'm shooting on my FX30 right now and the max quality it offers. I used to shoot in lower quality on this, but once I started using Lumix, I was like, dang, these just have a little bit extra. And all three look great. So yeah, it's pretty cool. How about autofocus? Are we at Sony level yet? Overall, it's very solid and very reliable. I use it all the time. I have the newest Sigma 24-70 Mark II and it slams. I'm totally fine with it. The IBIS is the best in class on all these cameras. It's the best IBIS you're gonna use in a mirrorless camera. Money please, Dad, thanks. So I had to take a couple days to really think about the value proposition of each of these three cameras. That's why I'm wearing different clothing. Who are these cameras for? Let's start with the 2E since it's the most affordable. I think this camera is gonna be so good for people who want to just check out the Lumix system. Maybe you're Canon, Sony, Nikon, whatever kind of shooter, and you want to check out what Lumix has to offer but not bust a bank. I don't think necessarily if you own an S5II or S5IIX that you need to jump to the E because it's the same sensor and a lot of the same stuff. If you're already a Lumix user and you're looking to upgrade, you gotta go with either the R or the S1II. If you're primarily considering yourself a photographer at all, the R is just unbelievable. The image quality is so gorgeous. It has something a little bit magical. I really love this camera. I don't know if it's because I've spent more time with it and I like went to the Norway trip and stuff like that, but there's something about it that I gravitate toward. If you're a filmmaker or video creator first, then I think the S1II is the smartest choice because it has a little bit better rolling shutter. This is a video monster. It's unbelievably good and the stills are good too. For me personally, if I could only pick one between the R or the 2, I would probably pick the R because I do a pretty equal amount of photo and video now, but if I was just video, I would go with the S1 because it's just such a powerhouse. I hope that was helpful. Now let's go to Past Me for the outro. Text me when you get home so I know you're safe, and watch out for deer. They've been trying to attack my sweet little heifers and I won't stand for it. Support me on Patreon, join my Discord, follow me on Instagram for short and dumb stuff like this. And please remember that Jesus loves you, for real. You guys are so loved. God loves you. You're amazing. I am so thankful for the journey you guys have allowed me to be on, making YouTube videos and posting my creative work out there. You guys are amazing, genuinely. Thank you for dealing with my stupidity, painting cameras and being a dork, but giving me a safe space and providing for me and my family. You guys are amazing. So God bless you guys. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.